Is liberty dying where you live? Escape to Keene at freekeene.com.
How are you?
Better.
Good. Listen, I was talking to your supporters in the back. One or two had signs. I asked them to remove the signs. I also indicated that I didn't care one way or the other whether they stood when I came in or left. But I thought that I suggested to them that it might be in your best interest if they stood when the jury comes up. That's their prerogative and their right. They don't have to. But I think that it may negatively impact you if some of them are not standing when the jury comes. I don't know that for a fact, but I just wanted to let you know that's what I told them. They can do as they please, obviously. But for me, I don't care. But for the jury, it may affect you. They're not going to see it when I'm standing in court. Okay, so I just want to let you know I told them that.
I understand. I cannot make individuals do anything. I wish some folks here thought about how their actions made their appearance look, as you are some of my friends.
So you understand how that's the message I left with it. And I was just having a dialogue with our audiovisual. I don't want the jury to be videoed or names. So we got to work around that. Everything else is fair game.
I have a few considerations. I'm actually not sure I want to go through this thing. I want to kind of file a motion for continuance because Michael and I had a conversation last week, and due to some of that, I haven't been allowed to access the law library during my incarceration. And there are some other issues, like I'm not allowed to bring a pen in the courtrooms here, as well as the process in which I am taken from my jail cell at 5 in the morning. And
your motion continues tonight, but I do think you should have a right to have a pen and pencil, so we're going to take care of that for you.
Okay. What about the, we had a conversation on how he's going to try to prosecute me, and therefore I needed access to legal documents that weren't available to me in a case. So
we're going forward.
Okay.
So how can you get what you need on film without getting the jurors' faces or names?
Okay, so I've been to jury selections before, and it's my understanding they come in, they sit down, there's the number picking process, they have already been assigned numbers, so you're typically not calling their names out at that point.
You know, see, I'm calling names, that's the problem.
You are
calling them by name.
Okay.
They're coming up.
If you just want to signal to me when I need to just stop recording, I can stop recording at that time, and then if there's an appropriate part to begin recording, I can.
What I'll do is I'll signal, but you'll know when we call the first juror.
Yeah.
John and I'll let you know we're about to call. From that point on, cut until they're impaneled.
Sure, no problem.
Okay.
I'll close this little door too, so if anybody's paranoid that, you know, Tony's welcome to come back and check on me or whatever, you know, all is well.
Okay.
Is there information on the jurors that was, like, questions they filled out? Like
Questionnaire.
Yeah. Do I get a copy of all that?
Yeah. Can you get a jury book form? 13th. Week from today, Monday the 13th.
Your Honor, for a variety of reasons, including the concerns the defendant has voiced today, back I think it was in February when we had the original arraignment, and obviously the defendant at that time asked to proceed pro se. While I'm sure he understands it, and while I'm sure the court recognizes that he understands it, I would ask the court to engage in a slightly further colloquy of the defendant's Faretta rights. I mean, if you look at New Hampshire cases such as State versus Thomas, which is a 2003 case, the court essentially went through how the Supreme Court went through how the trial court had engaged in numerous conversations with the defendant to ensure not just that he wanted to go forward, but that his waiver was knowing and voluntary, that he understood the risks, that he understood the responsibilities, and I'm not sure that has really happened in this case. Just based on the number of interactions with the defendant, including this morning, of not knowing necessarily what his rights were this morning, I think that the court should just clarify with the defendant that he does understand what proceeding pro se means, just to protect the record, Your Honor.
So I think the state is technically correct. Basically, what it is suggesting is I have to ensure that you're representing yourself, knowing full well of consequences thereof. Remember last time we were together, not last, a couple times ago, I had that sheet of paper that if you're going to represent yourself, you know your rights. Remember that one?
I believe sent me a lot of paperwork.
I didn't, but you went over the same one the last time you were with us, and you initially declined to sign, and I said that was okay. What I want you to do is, I just want you to, is this it? No, it's no, wrong, that's the wrong, here, smell it. For the state's purposes, I'm giving the defendant a waiver by defendant of the right to counsel and request by defendant to represent himself pro se. It's the same form that you went over when we were together before. I'm going to give it to you again and ask you to read it. You don't have to sign it, but I'm just going to ask you whether you've read it and understood it when you're done. Fair enough?
I guess fair. As fair as can be in this place.
Clyde, I've signed off on this.
Clyde's gone. I'm
Okay.
Ian.
What's your?
I'm Ian Freeman.
Okay.
I'll be putting in a similar notice next week as well.
Well, all right, let me just simply say, you've read over the acknowledgement of what rights you're giving up by representing yourself.
I'm not giving up any of my rights.
Or do you want counsel now? Because you have a right to counsel.
I have the right to freedom of speech and to speak the truth, and that's what I'm willing to do.
And represent you. Let me, why don't you give me that book back? No. Actually, you keep that and give me another one.
I mean, I'm not, it says a license to abuse the dignity of the courtroom. I don't even know what that means. I'm here, I don't know what
Well, let's go over it together then. You understand that you have a right to counsel, correct?
I understand.
You understand that if you can't afford counsel, someone will be appointed to represent you. You understand that?
Someone else would be forced to pay for counsel, yes.
The state, public defender or court appointed.
Taxpayer. The state is a real person.
I think you're right.
Thank you.
That you are wishing to represent yourself, you specifically waive the right to counsel, correct?
I acknowledge that no one can speak for myself other than me.
You're prepared to proceed by choosing a jury, direct and cross-examination of witnesses, and present open and closing statements.
Well, I'm being forced to do that because there's no other option before me.
So you're prepared to do that?
Under coercion and with total force, yes.
You understand by proceeding pro se, you can't later object to it, since we're going over that right now?
I don't know what you're implying.
Okay. And you know that if you're found guilty, the state may seek incarceration, and I may sentence you accordingly if warranted. Do you understand that?
So it's you, not the state.
Ultimately, it's me to sentence you.
Okay.
So, Mr. Miller, let me ask you a couple things. When the jury, when I'm asking the jury the questions, do you want me to explain that they should not view the fact that you're representing yourself negatively or positively, that you have a right to do it, or do you want me not to mention it at all? It's up to you.
I can't tell you what you can and cannot do.
I'm giving you an opportunity here. Do you want me to include that in one of the questions or not?
If you feel it's viable, then feel free to do so.
All right, I might. Do you want me to mention that you're a member of the Free State or not?
I don't know what proof you would have.
I'll phrase it any way you want. I think there's some people that would be supportive, some are here, but they're not jurors. So some members of the jury may be supportive, others may look upon your views negatively, and I'd like not to have anyone in the jury that's on either side of that pole. So if you don't want me to mention it all, I won't.
I think you should allow me to speak for myself and identify my own beliefs and positions.
Okay. Then I won't mention anything. Is there anything else that you want on the record before we bring the jury in? State Deputy?
I just want to clarify based on Mr. Miller's last comment. He's obviously not entitled to speak other than to introduce
himself or to talk to the jury at this point. If he's talking about, explain himself during trial and he wants to testify, that's obviously his right. But I'm not sure.
I think during opening, I think we're talking about opening statements and things like that. We're not going to be addressing the jury today.
Okay, thank you.
All set. Bring him in.
I had emailed about a witness issue for the 14th that Denise Michaels, who was on vacation for this week, has an appointment with her husband who is about to undergo prostate cancer surgery, and the prep appointments are all on the 14th. It was my intention, although it would require us to essentially adjourn the trial, because I don't expect it to necessarily take all day Monday, but she was available Tuesday morning and just call her first thing and then.
That's fine.
Yeah, okay, thank you. You're gonna put her through all that, you can just drop her charges.
Not very nice of you.
Still those 4 witnesses?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, for jury.
Mueller has decided to represent himself in this case, and you'll see that the plaintiff in the civil case has decided to represent himself. You should not view the fact that someone is representing themselves positively or negatively. They have a right to do so, and the court respects that right. So we are going to pick 15 jurors today. This case is starting at 10 a.m. on the 13th. 10 a.m. on the 13th. Mr. Mueller has been charged with 3 counts of wiretapping. Let me just tell you what the elements of what the wiretapping charge is. The first element is the defendant intercepted a communication or oral communication. 2, that the defendant did not have the consent from all parties to the conversation to intercept it, and the defendant acted purposely. We'll get into those elements at the end of the case, but there's 3 counts of wiretapping that has been brought by the state alleging the defendant committed that crime. I'm going to identify the witnesses for you who may testify should you know them or think you know them or have any concerns regarding them. We'll talk if your name is called. Officer David DuPont, Manchester Police Department. Officer Jonathan Hopkins, Manchester Police Department. Mary Ellen McGorry, Manchester, New Hampshire. And is it Dennis Michael? Sorry? Denise Michael, Manchester, New Hampshire. Those are the 4 witnesses that may testify in this case. Listen carefully to the following questions. Should you have any concerns regarding them or any issues regarding the inquiries, if your name's called, come on up and we'll talk at the bench. So the following, please, is a manner in which the defendant is brought to trial. It is not evidence of guilt, and no unfavorable inference may be drawn against the defendant merely because he's charged with a crime. Do you disagree with or have any mental reservations concerning the following principle of law? This defendant, as well as all defendants in criminal proceedings, is presumed to be innocent until proven guilty. This presumption of innocence continues throughout the trial and entitles this defendant to be acquitted, that is, found not guilty, unless and until the jury, after deliberations, finds that his guilt has been established beyond a reasonable doubt. 3, do you disagree with or have any mental reservations concerning the following principle of law? The burden of overcoming the presumption of innocence rests entirely with the state, and before this defendant can be convicted, all 12 members of the jury must be convinced from the evidence beyond a reasonable doubt that he committed the crimes charged. Do you disagree with or have any mental reservations concerning the following principle of law? The defendant is under no obligation to introduce any evidence whatsoever. That is, he is not obligated to prove his innocence. The defendant has the right to choose not to testify in his own defense, and his choice not to testify cannot be used in any manner as evidence of his guilt. The more general questions are as follows. Do you know the defendant, the attorneys, or any of the witnesses in this case? You know, in fairness, stand up and introduce yourself.
I'm Adam Miller.
State.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Michael Valentine. I'm an assistant county attorney with the Hillsborough County Attorney's Office.
Are you related by blood or marriage to the defendant, the attorneys, or any of the witnesses? Do you expect to gain or lose anything as a result of what your verdict might be? Do you employ any of the attorneys or any of their partners or associates in any matter of your own? Has any of the attorneys in this case ever represented anyone in any manner in which you were involved? Have you ever had any dealings with the attorneys or the defendant or any of the witnesses? Are you under any obligation, financial or otherwise, to the defendant, the attorneys, or any of the witnesses in this case? Have you or a close member of your family or a close friend ever been a victim of a crime? Have you ever been convicted of a crime which has not been annulled? Do you know anything about the facts of this case, or have you read or heard anything about this case? Have you advised or assisted either the state or the defendant in any manner relating to this case or in the preparation of this case? Have you directly or indirectly formed or given any opinion about this case, the defendant, the attorneys, the witnesses, or this type of case? Have you heard anyone express an opinion about this defendant, the witnesses, this case, or this type of case in the past, currently, or today? Do you belong to or have you contributed to any organization which involves itself in taking public positions regarding matters that might be involved in this case? Are you aware of any prejudice you might have against the defendant, the attorneys, or the witnesses? Are you aware of any prejudice whatsoever that you might have in connection with this case? Are you now or have you ever been a police officer or a member of a police commission or engaged in law enforcement in any way? Are you related to or close to anyone who is engaged in such activity in the past or currently? Do you have any moral, religious, or personal convictions regarding the type of offense charged which might influence what your verdict might be in this case? Do you believe that because a person has been charged with a crime, he is probably guilty and therefore must present evidence to prove that he's innocent? If you have such a belief, would that belief prevent you from accepting from this court and applying to this case the correct formulation of law? That is, that the defendant is presumed innocent until proven guilty, that the state has the burden of proving guilt beyond a reasonable doubt, and the defendant does not need to present any evidence whatsoever on his own behalf. And finally, do you know of any reason whatsoever why you cannot sit and hear the evidence in this case and render a true and honest verdict under your oath according to the facts as you find them to be and according to the law as the court will give to you at the end of the case? Those are my instructions. If your name is called and you have any questions concerning the charge or the inquiries that I just posed to you, we'll talk at the bench. We're going to draw 15.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, as I call your name, would you
Please do not talk among yourselves or with others concerning the case, and please do not do any independent research via the internet or any other source of information. I'd like to have you decide the case on the facts and the facts only. You note that there's a video camera here today. There's some press interest in this case. There was an article in the Union Leader this morning. I would ask that you not read any articles concerning this case. I'm not suggesting you can't read the papers, but if it pertains to this matter, I'd ask you to divert your eyes if you understand what I'm saying. Again, I want you folks to decide the case on the facts only, and we will see you on the 13th for a 2-day trial. Thank you very much.
All right.
Your attention, please. Those present for the matter of Peterborough Roundabout Development, Chase Peterborough Realty, please report to 404.
I'll say it.
You look terrible.
We'd like to invite you to visit freekeen.com. Freekeen.com features audio, video, and blogs chronicling the transition to a voluntary society. Freekeen.com also has comments and discussion forums so you can be heard. Freekeen.com.
I should be in Keene, New Hampshire with the Free Staters.